The first thing Alara felt was fear. Not the quiet kind she'd learned to live with, but the sharp, electric kind that made her chest tighten before her mind could catch up. The bell above the bakery door rang at 2:41 a.m. She knew, without looking, that something was wrong. No customers came in at that hour. Not in this part of the city. Not in Red Hook East, where the streetlights flickered like they were tired of trying, and the sidewalks belonged to people who didn't explain themselves. Alara wiped her hands on her apron and slowly lifted her head. Marcus' hand stood in the doorway. Korean, impeccably dressed, completely out of place. His presence swallowed the narrow bakery hole, like the room itself had learned who was in charge the moment he stepped inside. His dark eyes locked onto her, cold on the surface, burning underneath. Alara's heart dropped straight into her stomach. He found me. She straightened her shoulders, instinct kicking in. She had spent her whole life learning how to stand tall when the world decided to test her. Being a black woman in spaces not built for her taught you that early. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Marcus didn't move. "You didn't come home." The word hit harder than she expected. "This isn't my home," Alara replied, keeping her voice steady. "You live in my house," he said. "You disappear every night, and you lie about where you go." Her jaw tightened. "So you followed me." "I protected you." "No," she said sharply. "You watched me." The bakery hummed around them. Ovens, old machines, the sound of tired people in the back pretending not to listen. Alara was suddenly very aware of how she looked. Cheap uniform, hair pulled tight, dark skin under harsh fluorescent lights that never forgave anyone who looked like her. Marcus's gaze traveled over her slowly, not with desire, not with judgment, but with something closer to pain. "This is where you go instead of coming back," he said quietly. Alara laughed once, bitter. "Don't say it like I owe you anything." "I'm not asking for ownership." "Then stop acting like I'm property you misplaced." His jaw flexed. "I am acting like someone who's been losing sleep wondering if you're alive." That almost broke her. Almost. 3 months earlier, she'd stood in Marcus Hand's penthouse kitchen answering questions she knew weren't really about cleaning. He'd watched her the way powerful men did, measuring, deciding. She'd taken the job because she needed stability. The salary was too high to refuse, the room and board too convenient. What she hadn't planned for was the way he made space for her, asked what she ate, learned how she took her coffee, the way his house felt quieter when she wasn't in it. The debt letter had come 2 weeks later. $47,000. Final notice. Her father's name printed neatly at the top, like cancer hadn't already taken everything else. She folded the paper and hid it inside her suitcase, heart pounding. She didn't tell Marcus. She didn't tell anyone. Needing someone like him came with a price she wasn't willing to pay. The bakery job was supposed to be temporary. Graveyard shifts, cash, dangerous neighborhood. A choice she made so she wouldn't become something she feared more than exhaustion. Back in the present, Marcus took one step forward. Just one. "You're working yourself into the ground," he said. "You're walking streets where men see you as disposable. And you think living in your house makes me invisible," she shot back. "You think a black woman in a Korean crime boss's penthouse doesn't come with its own kind of danger." The truth landed heavy between them. Marcus inhaled slowly. "You think I hired you to own you?" "I think the world already assumes I belong to whoever pays me," she replied. "And I won't hand anyone proof." Silence stretched. Then he asked the question she'd been dreading. "How much do you owe?" Her body locked instantly. "No." "Ilara." "No," she repeated. "That's exactly why I didn't tell you." "Because you think money is a leash." "Because I know it can be." Marcus stared at her like she'd finally said something he'd been afraid to hear. "If I wanted to buy you," he said quietly, "I would have done it the first week." "That doesn't make it better," she snapped. "It makes it scarier." The back door creaked open. One of the younger workers peeked out, eyes wide. Alara shook her head sharply. "Go back," she said. The door closed. Marcus's voice dropped. I heard your name on the street. Her stomach twisted. From who? From men who don't ask permission. She crossed her arms, suddenly cold. So now I'm a problem to manage. You're a risk, he said, and not one I'm willing to lose. She stared at him. You don't get to decide that. His voice broke just slightly. I already have. The words hung there, dangerous and honest. I have been in love with you, Marcus said. Ilara froze. You don't get to say that, she whispered. I fought it, he continued. I told myself it was habit, proximity, but every night you didn't come back, it felt like something was being taken from me. Her chest burned. That's not love, that's fear. Then maybe it's both. She shook her head, tears threatening. You can't love me and control me at the same time. I don't want control, he said. I want honesty. You want safety, she shot back, and safety with you comes at the cost of myself. Headlights flashed through the front windows. Marcus pulled out his phone and ended a call without looking at it. What did you do? Ilara demanded. I ended this, he said. Cars pulled up outside. Quiet, expensive, final. Ilara's heart pounded. Marcus. I bought the building, he said. The bakery, the apartments above it. This place closes tonight. The room erupted behind them. Ilara felt something inside her snap. You think money fixes everything, she cried. You think this doesn't prove every fear I had. I think it keeps you alive. I think it cages me. Marcus stepped closer, eyes raw. Then teach me how not to lose you. The bakery went silent. For the first time, Marcus Han wasn't a mafia boss. He was a Korean man, standing in front of a black woman who refused to be owned. And Ilara didn't know whether staying would destroy her, or finally force her to stop running. The bakery emptied faster than Ilara expected. Workers whispered, argued, cursed under their breath, but no one fought the men in suits handing out envelopes and instructions. Money soothed confusion. Authority erased protest. Within minutes, the ovens went dark and the radios fell silent, leaving only the hum of the refrigerators and the sound of Ilara's own breathing. Marcus stood near the door while the last worker left, posture rigid, eyes never leaving her. He looked like he was bracing for something, an attack, a verdict, maybe both. When the door finally locked, the quiet felt oppressive. You didn't have the right, Ilara said. Marcus exhaled slowly. I had the power. That's not the same thing. No, he agreed. It's worse. She hadn't expected that answer. It stole some of her anger, left it without a place to land. You think I don't know what this looks like? She asked. You shutting down my job with a phone call. I think you were killing yourself to avoid asking me for help. And you think that gives you permission. I think it gives me responsibility. She laughed, sharp and bitter. That's what men like you always say. Marcus stiffened. Men like me. Men who confuse protection with possession, she said. Men who think power makes their fear righteous. He looked away, jaw tight. You don't know where I come from. Then tell me, she challenged. Because right now all I see is a man who decided my life was easier to control than understand. The words hit him harder than she expected. He rubbed a hand over his face, the mask slipping just enough for her to see the exhaustion underneath. I grew up learning that weakness gets buried, Marcus said quietly. That love is leverage, that the fastest way to lose everything is to let someone see what you care about. And yet here you are, Ilara said, dragging me into it. I didn't drag you, he replied. You walked into my house. I walked into a job, she shot back. You turned it into something else. Silence stretched again, thick and uncomfortable. How much is it? Marcus asked. Her body reacted before her mind did. She turned away, pressing her palms flat against the counter, grounding herself. No. Ilara. I said no. You don't get to keep destroying yourself because you're afraid of what I might do with the truth. She spun around. You don't get to decide how I survive. I get to decide whether I let you die doing it. The cruelty of the words wasn't intentional, but it landed all the same. Alara felt tears burn behind her eyes, anger and fear tangling until she couldn't tell them apart. "You don't know what it's like," she said, voice shaking. "To grow up knowing your safety depends on how little you need. To know that the moment you rely on someone powerful, they own you." "I don't want to own you," Marcus said fiercely. "Then stop proving that you can." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The distance between them felt fragile, like one wrong word would shatter it beyond repair. "I followed you," Marcus admitted finally. "Not at first. At first I just noticed the patterns, the exhaustion, the lies, then I heard your name." Her chest tightened. "From who?" "From men who don't see women as people," he said. "From men who noticed a black woman walking alone at night and wondered who would come looking if something happened." Fear curled in her stomach. "So now I'm a liability." "You're a target," he said, "and that's what I can't accept." Alara swallowed hard. "This is why I didn't tell you." "And this is why you should have," Marcus replied. He pulled out his phone again, hesitating this time before unlocking it. "What now?" she asked warily. "Nothing without your consent," he said. "I learned that tonight." She studied him, searching for manipulation, for hidden angles. She found only strain. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Honesty," Marcus said, "and the chance to do this without turning into someone you have to escape." She closed her eyes briefly, then nodded once. "Then listen." He did. She told him about the debt, the exact amount, the hospital bills that never stopped coming. The nights she woke up hearing her father cough in her dreams. She told him how every dollar she earned felt like borrowed time, how accepting help felt like surrender. Marcus didn't interrupt. His face tightened with every word, but he didn't try to fix it. When she finished, the bakery felt different, less hostile, more exposed. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I couldn't," she replied, "not without losing myself." He nodded. "Then don't lose yourself." She looked up sharply. "What?" "I don't pay it," Marcus said. "Not like that, no quiet rescues, no leverage." Her breath caught. "You'd let me keep struggling." "I'd let you choose," he corrected. "There's a difference." She stared at him, heart pounding. "What are you suggesting?" "Structure," he said. "Contracts, independence, an exit whenever you want it." "You'd let me leave your house?" "Yes." "Walk away." "If that's what you decide." The fear in his eyes was unmistakable. "And the bakery?" she asked. "It stays closed," Marcus said. "Not because I own you, because it was dangerous." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'm not coming back to your house tonight." His shoulders dropped slightly, like he'd been expecting that. "Where will you go?" "A motel," she said. "Neutral ground." He reached into his pocket and held out a card. "If you need anything." She took it, but didn't promise to use it. They walked out together, the night cold and alive around them. Marcus's car waited at the curb. The ride was silent. When the car stopped, Alara opened the door and paused. "You don't get to track me." "I won't," he said. "You don't get to decide what safety looks like for me." "I understand." She met his gaze. "And you don't get to love me if it means erasing me." Marcus swallowed. "Then I'll learn how to love you without doing that." She stepped out into the night and closed the door behind her. As the car pulled away, Marcus sat in the dark, realizing something he'd never admitted before. Power had never scared him. Loving her did. And Alara lay awake in a cheap motel bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing one thing for certain. Running had kept her alive. But it hadn't made her free. Alara didn't sleep. The motel room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that forced memories to speak louder than they should. She lay on top of the covers, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling fan as it rattled and spun, like it couldn't decide whether to fall apart or keep going. At 5:12 a.m., her phone vibrated. She froze. The screen showed an unknown number. She let it ring once, twice, then she answered, heart pounding. Hello. You shouldn't have left his house. The voice was male, calm, curious, not rushed. That frightened her more than shouting would have. Ilara sat up slowly. You have the wrong number. No, the man said. You're Ilara Moore, you cleaned for Marcus Han, or you did. Her fingers tightened around the phone. Who is this? A reminder, the voice replied. Power doesn't like being questioned. The call ended. Ilara stared at the blank screen, her chest tight, breath shallow. This was the part she had always feared, not Marcus, not his money, the way his world leaked. She called him before she could stop herself. He answered on the first ring. Are you hurt? No, she said, but someone called me. They knew my name. Silence. How much did they say? Marcus asked carefully. Enough, she replied. Enough to tell me I don't get to be invisible anymore. I told you to use the card if anything happened. I didn't want this, she said. I didn't want to be dragged into your wars. And I didn't want you exposed, Marcus replied. But the truth doesn't ask permission. I don't want men outside my door, she said quickly. I don't want surveillance, I want honesty. Another pause, longer this time. Then you should hear this in person, Marcus said. Where are you? She hesitated, then gave him the address. By the time he arrived, the sun was already climbing, pale and unforgiving. Marcus stepped into the motel room like someone entering hostile territory. No guards, no weapons in sight, just him. You shouldn't be alone right now, he said. I chose this, Ilara replied. That matters. He nodded. It does. She told him about the call, every word, every tone. Marcus listened, jaw tight, eyes sharp. This wasn't a threat, he said when she finished. It was a test. A test for what? For whether fear would send you running back to me. Her stomach twisted. And did it? No, he said. It sent you toward the truth. That didn't feel like comfort. Marcus, she said, I need to understand what staying near you actually costs. He met her gaze. Then I won't lie. They left the motel together, not touching, and walked until they found a small cafe already buzzing with morning traffic. Students, office workers, normal people arguing about coffee orders and deadlines. Marcus sat across from her, hands folded. My world isn't just violence, he began. It's history, obligation, men who believe power is inherited and never questioned. And where do I fit in that? Ilara asked. He didn't soften it. As leverage, as a warning, as proof I can be hurt. She let out a slow breath, and as a black woman. As someone they think they can break easier, Marcus said. Because they believe you don't belong anywhere powerful unless someone put you there. The honesty stung, but she appreciated it. So if I stay, she said, I'm visible. Yes. And if I leave? You're still visible, he replied, just unprotected and uninformed. She stared out the window, watching a woman cross the street with a backpack and headphones, completely unaware of how fragile safety really was. I won't live in your house, Ilara said finally. Not again, not now. Marcus nodded immediately. I already arranged alternatives. She raised an eyebrow. That was fast. I prepared myself for you to choose distance, he said. I had to. I get my own place, she continued. In my name, no ties. Done. I don't work for you under the table, she said. Contract only, salary adjusted, legal protections. Already drafted. And I go back to school, she added. Business, nights, I want something that's mine. I'll support it, Marcus said, without conditions. She studied him. Why? Because I don't want to win you by exhaustion, he replied. I want you to stay because you choose me. Her chest tightened at that. And the debt, she asked. His jaw flexed. I want to pay it. She shook her head. No. Then let me invest in you, Marcus said. Accounts you control, education, growth, something that exists whether I'm in your life or not. That gave her pause. You're asking me to trust you, she said. I'm asking you to help me become someone worth trusting, he replied. They left the cafe with an agreement that felt fragile but real. That afternoon, Alara signed a lease. Small apartment, second floor, sunlight through wide windows, a place that didn't feel like borrowed space. Marcus stood in the hallway while she unlocked the door. "You don't have to wait," she said. "I want to," he replied. She stepped inside alone. That night, her name appeared online. Not loudly, not publicly, in places where men traded information like currency. Marcus shut it down fast, but not before Alara saw it. "This is what I mean," she said over the phone. "Your world doesn't let go." "No," Marcus replied. "It tightens." "And I won't be crushed by it," she said. "With you or without you." "I know," he said. "That's why they're afraid of you." The days that followed were tense, quiet, loaded. Alara moved into her apartment, bought groceries, started classes, built routines that felt like resistance. Marcus kept his distance, honoring every boundary. But the pressure didn't disappear. It shifted. And somewhere in the city, men who didn't like losing control began asking new questions. Questions that would demand answers neither Alara nor Marcus could avoid much longer. The first week in her new apartment felt like standing on uncertain ground. Alara learned the rhythm of the building quickly, the way the pipes knocked at night, the neighbor who smoked on the fire escape, the couple upstairs who argued softly like they were afraid of being overheard. It wasn't luxury. It wasn't protection, but it was hers. That mattered more than she expected. Classes began the following Monday. Alara sat in the back row with a borrowed laptop and a notebook filled with careful handwriting. Business fundamentals, accounting basics, strategy, words that described power without disguising it as threat. She asked questions other students didn't think to ask. Her professors noticed. So did Marcus. "You think in systems," he told her one evening when they spoke on the phone. "You don't just survive them, you map them." "I had to," she replied. "Systems weren't built for me to be comfortable inside them." The threats didn't return immediately. That worried Marcus more than if they had. He moved carefully, shifting alliances, sending quiet warnings that didn't require violence to be understood. Alara was not currency. She was not pressure. Anyone who tested that assumption would regret it. Still, the city had a way of reminding people where they stood. The note appeared on Alara's door on a Thursday night. No words, just a symbol she didn't recognize. Clean, precise. She stared at it for a long time before tearing it down. She didn't tell Marcus right away. Not because she didn't trust him, but because she needed to know whether she could stand without leaning. That illusion shattered 3 nights later. Alara was halfway home from class, earbuds in, mind replaying lecture notes, when she noticed the street ahead emptying too quickly. The laughter from a nearby bar faded. A car slowed as it passed her once. Then again. Her instincts flared. She slipped her phone into her hand, fingers hovering over Marcus's name, and that was when someone grabbed her arm and yanked her backward into the alley. She screamed. The man's grip was brutal, fingers digging into her skin hard enough to bruise. He smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne. "Don't fight," he muttered. "You're worth more intact." A second man stepped out of the shadows, smiling. Panic surged. Alara kicked, scratched, bit. Her bag tore open. Her phone skidded across the pavement. For a moment, the world narrowed to pain and breath and survival. Then everything exploded. Headlights flared, tires screeched, doors slammed. Voices shouted, some in English, some in Korean. The men froze as hands pinned them to the wall, efficient and merciless. Alara collapsed to the ground, shaking. Marcus was there seconds later. He hadn't arrived with an army. He'd arrived desperate and almost too late. Their eyes met across the chaos. The fear on his face, cut deeper than the bruises forming on her arm. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus's men melted away before questions could stick, leaving the attackers behind, broken and terrified. Ilara forced herself to her feet. I didn't call you, she said immediately. I know, Marcus replied. His voice was unsteady. That's what scares me. I told you not to watch me. I wasn't, he said. They were. That stopped her cold. This wasn't because you left my house, Marcus continued quietly. This was because you mattered to me. The police arrived. Statements were taken. Names were exchanged and forgotten. The system did what it always did, enough to look functional, never enough to feel safe. When it was over, Ilara sat on the curb, arms wrapped around herself, adrenaline still burning through her veins. Marcus crouched in front of her but didn't touch her. You're hurt, he said. I'm alive, she replied. Barely. She laughed once, brittle. You don't get to say that like I didn't know the risk. And you don't get to pretend this is strength, Marcus snapped back. This is you almost dying to prove you don't need anyone. Her eyes flashed. I didn't choose this. No, he said. You chose to face it alone. Silence stretched, thick with things neither of them wanted to admit. I won't lock you up, Marcus said finally, but I won't pretend distance protects you either. So what are you saying? She demanded. I'm saying independence doesn't mean isolation, he replied, and love doesn't mean control unless you let it. She studied him, breath still uneven. And if I say no? Then I protect you from a distance you define, Marcus said. Not because I own you, because I choose you. They went to her apartment together that night. Marcus stopped at the doorway. You don't have to stay out there, Ilara said quietly. I do, he replied, until you ask otherwise. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Stay, not as protection, as presence. He nodded once and stepped inside. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the silence between them no longer hostile but heavy with truth. I hate that I needed you tonight, Ilara admitted. I hate that you were hurt, Marcus replied. I don't want to disappear into your world. I don't want you to, he said. I want you to change it. She scoffed softly. You think they'll let me? I think they're already afraid of you, Marcus said. Later, when he left, Ilara stood alone in her apartment, staring at the door long after it closed. Love hadn't saved her, but it had shown up when it mattered. And now the cost of choosing it was no longer theoretical. It was real. After the attack, the city felt different. Not louder, not quieter, sharper, like every street corner had learned her name. Ilara moved through her days with a new awareness, one she hated and respected at the same time. She changed routes without thinking. She stopped wearing headphones at night. She memorized faces. Survival had always been a skill she carried quietly. Now it demanded attention. Marcus didn't tighten his grip. That was the part that surprised her. No guards outside her building, no sudden curfews, no orders disguised as concern. He asked before showing up. He waited for answers. When he offered help, he framed it as choice, not command. And that restraint cost him more than violence ever had. You don't have to pretend this didn't shake you, Ilara told him one evening as they sat across from each other at her small kitchen table. I'm not pretending, Marcus replied. I'm managing. That's not the same thing. He gave a humorless smile. In my world, it usually is. They argued more after that. Not shouting, not cruelty, but friction. Honest, uncomfortable friction about boundaries and risk and what loving each other would require long-term. I won't be the reason you burn the city down, Ilara said. And I won't be the reason you die proving a point, Marcus shot back. Her classes intensified. Numbers replaced fear in her thoughts. Balance sheets, cash flow, strategy. She stayed up late building models for hypothetical businesses, imagining futures that didn't depend on proximity to danger. Her professors noticed her discipline. One pulled her aside after class. You think like someone who's been forced to understand power early, he said. Ilara smiled faintly. I didn't have a choice. Neither had Marcus. He began dismantling expectations quietly. Meetings moved. Old alliances frayed. He made it clear that Alara Moore was not leverage. Anyone who tested that would lose more than reputation. Some listened. Others didn't. The invitation arrived, folded inside a plain envelope, delivered to Marcus's office by a man who didn't ask to sit. Dinner, private room, names that carried weight. Marcus didn't want Alara there. She insisted. "It's my name they're using," she said. "I won't hide while men negotiate my safety." He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then you sit beside me, not behind." The restaurant overlooked the river, glass and steel pretending to be neutral ground. The man waiting for them was older, Korean, silver threaded through his hair, smile polite and sharp enough to cut. "Miss Moore," the man said, eyes lingering too long. "You're unexpected." "So are threats delivered through back alleys," Alara replied calmly. Marcus stiffened beside her. The man chuckled. "You speak boldly for someone standing near danger." Alara leaned forward. "I stand near men who mistake fear for authority." The room cooled. "You've made Marcus careless," the man said. "Weak." Marcus's jaw tightened. Alara smiled, slow and deliberate. "No, I've made him honest." The man studied her more carefully now. "You think honesty survives in our world?" "I think lies rot it from the inside," she said. "And I think you tested me because you assumed I'd break." "And did you?" he asked. She met his gaze without blinking. "I'm still standing." Silence stretched. Finally, the man leaned back. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting." The threat stopped after that. Not because peace was declared, but because balance shifted. Later that night, Marcus admitted it. "I would have handled that with blood," he said quietly. "I handled it with clarity," Alara replied. "That's my power." He looked at her differently then, not as something to shield, but as someone who altered the terrain just by existing. Weeks passed. Alara's bruises faded. Her confidence didn't. She began taking on small consulting work, legitimate clients, clean numbers. She earned her first independent check and stared at it for a long time before depositing it. Marcus did interfere. He watched from a distance she defined, learning what restraint looked like when it wasn't weakness. One evening, as they walked along the river, Marcus stopped. "I need to ask you something," he said. She tensed. "Okay." "If I asked you to marry me one day," Marcus said carefully, "would you hear it as a cage?" Her heart skipped. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether I'm choosing you," she said, "or choosing safety." He nodded slowly. "Then I won't ask until you don't have to wonder." That answer stayed with her long after they parted. That night, alone in her apartment, Alara reviewed spreadsheets and future plans, the city humming outside her window. She thought about her father, about the debt that still loomed, about the woman she was becoming. She didn't need Marcus to survive. She wanted him to witness her thriving. But the past wasn't finished collecting its debts. It never was. And the final test was already on its way. The email arrived without ceremony. No threats, no insults, just numbers neatly aligned, cold and precise. $47,000, outstanding balance, final notice. Alara stared at the screen, long after the words stopped meaning anything. For months, that number had been the shadow behind every choice she made, every late night, every lie, every refusal to ask for help. Now it sat quietly in her inbox, stripped of drama, waiting. She closed the laptop. Marcus found her an hour later, standing by the window, arms folded tight across her chest. "You look like someone who just lost a fight she didn't know was still happening," he said. She handed him the laptop without a word. Marcus read the email once, then again. His expression didn't change, but something inside him tightened, the way a storm gathers without warning. "I can take care of this tonight," he said. "I know," Alara replied. She watched him closely. This was the moment that mattered more than all the others combined. "But I won't," Marcus added. "Not unless you ask me to." Her shoulders sagged slightly. relief she hadn't expected rushing through her. "I don't want to be rescued," she said quietly. "I want to finish this on my feet." He nodded. "Then I'll stand next to you while you do." They sat at the kitchen table together, not across from each other like opponents, side by side. Alara pulled out notebooks, spreadsheets, payment plans. The tools she'd been building for months finally had a purpose beyond theory. Marcus listened, not as a man used to giving orders, but as someone learning how to follow without disappearing. "You're thinking in stages," he said after a while. "Short-term pressure, long-term growth." "I don't want relief," Alara replied. "I want independence that survives." "That's smarter," he said, "and harder." "I've done harder." He smiled faintly at that. Over the next 2 weeks, Alara worked relentlessly. She picked up extra consulting work, negotiated fees without apologizing, asked for what she was worth, and didn't flinch when clients hesitated. Marcus watched her sharpen, equal parts pride and fear settling into his chest. He was used to power being loud. Hers was quiet, precise, unavoidable. The men watching from the edges noticed too. The city tested them one last time. A rumor surfaced, carefully placed, poisonous, that Alara was only successful because Marcus funded her, that her independence was an illusion paid for by proximity to violence. Alara heard it in passing, then again, then louder. She confronted Marcus that night. "This ends," she said. "How?" he asked. "By truth," she replied. "Not threats, not silence." The next morning, Alara did something Marcus hadn't expected. She spoke. Not to the underworld, to the open world. She published her work, her contracts, her credentials, transparent, verifiable, untouchable. She claimed her narrative before anyone else could twist it. The rumors died fast. Marcus watched from a distance, all replacing instinct. "You didn't destroy them," he said later. "You outgrew them." "I learned that from you," she replied, "from watching what power does when it's misused." Something shifted then, not just between them, but inside him. That night, Alara made the final payment. She sat alone at her kitchen table, finger hovering over the confirmation button. The number looked smaller now, manageable, human. She clicked. The screen refreshed. Balance, $0. The breath she released felt like it came from somewhere deep, somewhere old. Tears followed, not from pain, but from release. When Marcus arrived later, she didn't say anything. She just handed him the laptop. He read it once. Then he pulled her into his arms without asking, holding her like something fragile and unbreakable at the same time. "You did this," he said softly. "Yes," she replied, "I did." They stayed like that for a long time. No plans, no negotiations, just stillness. Later, as they sat on the couch, Marcus spoke again. "There's something I need to ask you," he said. She tensed slightly. "Okay." "Not now," he added quickly. "Not tonight, just someday." She looked at him. "I know." "And when I do," he continued, "I want you to hear it as choice, not shelter." She smiled. "Then wait." "I will." Outside, the city hummed, indifferent and relentless. Inside, two people sat with the truth that had nearly broken them and somehow made them stronger. The past had been paid for. The future was no longer something to survive. It was something to build. And the final decision, about love, about partnership, about choosing each other, was finally free of fear. The proposal didn't come right away. That surprised everyone who knew Marcus Han. In his world, decisions were made fast and enforced faster. Hesitation was weakness. Waiting was surrender. But with Alara, he waited, because for the first time in his life, restraint wasn't a strategy. It was respect. Weeks passed, then months. Alara's life filled in around her, not with noise, but with substance. More clients, bigger contracts, a rhythm that belonged to her alone. She stopped measuring time in survival and started measuring it in progress. Marcus never asked to be centered in it. He showed up when invited, listened more than he spoke, learned the difference between protection and presence the hard way by almost losing her. The city noticed. People started referring to Alara without attaching Marcus's name to hers. Not his housekeeper, not his woman, just Alara, consultant, strategist, the black woman who built something solid in a world that expected her to break. That mattered to her more than any ring ever could. The final test came quietly. An old associate of Marcus's resurfaced with an offer, clean on the surface, dangerous underneath. It came with money, influence, and one unspoken condition: distance from Alara, not a threat, a suggestion. The kind men like that believed was generous. Marcus listened without reacting. Then he declined. It cost him. Influence shifted, doors closed, but something else opened. That night, Marcus came to Alara's apartment without warning. Not frantic, not angry, just resolved. "I chose you," he said as soon as she opened the door. She searched his face. "I didn't ask you to sacrifice anything." "I know," he replied. "That's why it matters." She stepped aside and let him in. They cooked together badly, burned the rice, laughed about it. The kind of laughter that comes from knowing the ground under your feet won't disappear mid-step. After dinner, they sat on the couch, the city glowing through the windows like a witness. "There's something I need to ask you," Marcus said. Alara didn't tense this time. She waited. He stood, not dramatically, not suddenly, just stood, took a breath. Then he knelt, not because tradition demanded it, but because humility did. Her heart stuttered anyway. "I'm not asking you because I need you," Marcus said. "And I'm not asking because I think love should come with ownership." He looked up at her, eyes steady, unguarded. "I'm asking because I choose you. Because you challenged everything I was taught about power and showed me a better way to live with it. Because I don't want to build a future unless you're building it beside me." Alara felt emotion rise, sharp and unexpected. "I won't cage you," Marcus continued. "I won't shrink you. I won't use my world to erase yours. If you say yes, it's because you want me, not because you need protection or money or permission." He paused. "And if you say no, I will still respect you." The ring was simple, elegant, unassuming. She didn't answer right away. She thought about her father, about the nights she scrubbed floors and hid bills like shame, about the fear of becoming owned, about the woman she'd fought to become. Then she looked at Marcus Han, not the Mafia boss, not the man of power, but the one who learned how to kneel without losing himself. "Yes," she said. Not because she was safe. Because she was free. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years, stood, slid the ring onto her finger with hands that still shook. They didn't rush anything after that. No sudden move-ins, no merging lives overnight. They kept their homes, their routines, their independence. They chose each other deliberately every day without shortcuts. In Marcus's world, Alara rewrote rules without raising her voice. In Alara's world, Marcus learned that love wasn't a threat to power, it was its correction. They weren't perfect. They argued, negotiated, adjusted, but they never went back to secrecy, never back to control disguised as care. And in a city built on dominance, they became something quietly radical. Partners. If you made it to the end of this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell me, was Alara right to protect her independence no matter the cost? Or should she have trusted Marcus sooner? Your support helps these stories reach more people, and your thoughts shape what comes next.